Thank you so much, first of all, to the technical team who made this possible, that we can sit the 5 of us on stage. I'm surrounded by great people, and I cannot wait to start with the sessions. I will keep it very, very short. The lineup has changed a little bit. You might have seen the agenda beforehand. We wish great recovery wishes to Lily, who cannot be here today because she's sick at home. You know how cold it is outside, so please join us for sending her recovery wishes. Nevertheless, from Amplify Good, we have 2 speakers now on stage. Thank you both for being here. You will make your opening statements in a bit. So I will leave the introduction to them so we have more time for precious questions. And on my left side is also Caroline and Victor, who's also added to the stage a little bit later. So you can find him, I think, are we still on the still? No, but you can find him there as well. And Victor, without much ado, maybe you introduce yourself, you can do it best, and then you start with your opening statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. So I work at Axis, which is a small research unit that analyzes how tech, media, and capital shape long-term societal trajectories. And because I'm opening, I think I'm going to give you a sort of like survey of the general like topic of conversation, which is creators. So I like this graph because if you sort of look at ad revenue as a proxy for attention, it gives you quite a clear picture of what's happened, which is that traditional print media has been replaced by digital platforms that aggregate information. This data is from America, so I assume the picture would be a little bit less dramatic over here, but essentially you can see the trend. And I think this conversation is basically premised on the idea that my generation has grown up in these conditions, and somehow the form of politics we practice is going to be different as a result. So the first place to start then is to compare traditional media to social media and see what's changed. So, I mean, a lot of this is relatively orthodox, but social media is much faster. It's compressed in a way that reduces cognitive load, and it's delivered in a fragmented format. That format is then curated by an algorithm, and one of the consequences of this is that it's prone to stripping out context and not presenting you with alternative perspectives. So the reason I've grouped these factors together is that they all sort of allude to the question of whether political institutions should adapt to media platforms that are sort of inimical to complexity. So this is the next set of characteristics. So social media is the first mass form of media that is networked as opposed to broadcasted. And what I mean by that, so a broadcasted media form would be radio, television, or newspapers, where you're essentially going from one central node to lots of other smaller nodes, whereas social media is many to many as opposed to one to many. And one of the results of that is you get a fragmentation of discourse. Another notable characteristic is there's no gatekeeper, so anyone can build an audience. And typically they do that through sort of charisma, which is the perceived qualities of the individual. And then a final quality to note is that there's a lack of cultural norms. So I don't think that the temptation to sort of produce loud news stories in order to garner attention is unique to social media. I mean, I come from the UK, and we've got a pretty vibrant tabloid culture, but I think the lack of cultural norms exacerbates that. And then my final slide is to sort of end on a playful note, which is that a lot of this reflects things that happened in the Reformation. Obviously, I think that culture is in a very different place. We're far more educated, we're far more agnostic in our beliefs, and a lot less violent. But it's interesting to think back at how institutions reacted then, and I think that the tendencies that expressed themselves then are similar to now. And firstly, states stepped in to regulate the printing press, but there was also a development of a culture and sort of like professional norms in the form of journalism and a form of self-regulation that occurred over time more slowly, which is also why I think these conversations are quite interesting, because it's sort of leading to that. And that's it from me. So, there you go.
Hello. Thank you for your introduction. Wait.
We just wait until the screen is here.
Yeah, maybe I can just start. Hello, my name is Caroline Hochstraat, and I'm the co-founder of the Democratic Spin, together with Selina Kömmeringer, she's sitting there in the audience, which is a political communications consultancy for democratic impact. We're live since 2 days, actually, so it's a pleasure to be here. Also, I'm a law student at Humboldt University here in Berlin, and which is probably the main reason why I'm on the panel, is that I'm also an EU influencer. What this exactly means, I'm gonna elaborate in the following slides and in the questions. Maybe I'm waiting for the slides to appear.
To just bridge the gap, Caroline, if I may,
Yeah.
she just said she's an influencer. The last time I checked, 25,000 people are following you right now. This is tremendous. So first of all, congrats to that. And we have a picture. Great.
Yeah, that's me. And I think I'm going to start telling you about the Democratic Spin, because this is basically my main project at the moment. The mission of Selina and me is basically to help democratic actors worldwide to re-enter the arena of social media. So we're not only working for politicians or for parties in Germany, we're also working, for example, for embassies, for institutions, and in general for institutions who need our help, because we want to help to bring back pro-European and especially pro-democratic topics to the youth. Yeah, this is a bit about my background. I worked also in the European Parliament for I think 6 or 7 months for Niklas Herbst. He's the chair of the Budgetary Control Committee, also in the German Parliament, and I worked in journalism, but yeah, mostly I'm also studying law, sadly, at the side. And I heard that we all should start this presentation with an initial statement, and my initial statement with which I want to start this talk is that actually not adapting to social media is a bigger threat to democracy than engaging with it.
So thank you. You can keep it. We have enough. Thank you so much. Caroline, first of all. And I hope we just now, with our last 2 speakers on my right, a little bit faster with changing the slides. Because technology is not on our side, even though it's the Political Tech Summit.
Okay.
We can see it. Good. That's the presentation mode, but is it good? Can we see it on your screen? Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, then you can start.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, all of you, for being here. My name is Ligia, and with Matthias, we are representing Amplify Good. And we just wanted to briefly explain what we do, so it's so you understand the context we came from. So basically, what we do is bridging the gap between cause-driven organizations, political movements, with the digital audience that they want to reach. We work as like an organic content powerhouse where we help NGOs, organizations, political movements to reach out and work with authentic creators and making sure that they get the reach that they want and they amplify the message that they want to pass. And sorry. Oh no, wait. Okay, wait. So basically, what we are trying. Just one. Okay. So what we are trying to do is build trust in this like very noisy world. And in the same second that we are here, millions of content is being created, right? So we need to make sure that we are amplifying the important social messages and engage it with younger crowds that it's super complicated sometimes. And one of our biggest drives this like fighting disinformation, which is everywhere at this point, unfortunately, and that's where we want to work. And
thank you so much. Oh my God. Okay. So yes, I think you can move to the next slide. So basically, I just put some numbers here. I'm not going to read them out because they are just numbers in the end. But our approach started when we realized that running traditional social media campaigns in politics is not as easy as just opening an influencer relationship management platform, searching for a creator, and then they are on board. These are topics that are not necessarily brand safe for larger influencers whose livelihood is dependent on their personal brand, or it's more difficult to filter through thousands or tens of thousands of smaller creators. And basically my part of the job, I'm working as the data and analytics expert at Amplify Good, is to build data pipelines that categorize and align creators with campaign needs, and so we can match them more at scale, and we can do like a faster campaign setup and message delivery. Yes.
I just want to add, because I forgot to introduce myself, but basically I work with the creators in all the campaigns that we do to make sure that the messages are aligned. And my background, it's, well, very complex. You can check on LinkedIn. But basically the past years I've been working a lot in sustainability and social impact. And yes, so like, and also I'm a creator myself, not as much followers as Caroline, but yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your opening statements, the four of you. And my apologies for the technical hiccup, but we found us. So let's start a little bit about the debate. So when you studied the agenda, you noticed that this session, as many others, has several cornerstones that we want to cover. And the first one is how creators cultivate trust and authority outside traditional media. And I think to the two of you, the first question would be, where do actually campaigns right now miscalculate this trust when working with creators? So what is going wrong and why?
Okay, I'll probably start. So I think the main thing to keep is like trust. It's an ongoing process, and we need to trust the creators. They've been here for a while, and they are building this community, and they're like showing up consistently. So we need to actually make sure that we believe in the community relationships they are working. I think one of the big, I would say, big problems that I can see is like sometimes campaigns work with creators thinking about them just an advertising space. And that's not the approach that is correct. We need to think about them as community leaders. Like they are leading that community. And the reason why we are working with that specific person and not with another one is because we want to reach that community and they are leading it. So if we are just thinking about, oh, I'll do this post with them and it's like ads, it doesn't work anymore. So, for example, let's say you think about this creator has 1 million followers in gaming, I don't know, just say, or lifestyle, doesn't matter. But they don't align your message. They never, like, there's nothing that shows evidence that they even be like understanding what you're talking about. That's not the way that you should work. Like, you should not just work for the reach, but also work for like, you know, making sure that whoever like is working there is you are working with is like setting the democratic participation that you want and action that you want to them to perceive. And
yes, I think also having a deep understanding of what kind of content the creator makes is extremely important. We look at influencers as kind of a billboard at this post-political advertising era, that, oh, we can just transfer all the political ads to creators, but that's not necessarily true. This is an iterative process. We really have to understand what community the influencers are part of. And what I would add on this, they are not necessarily just leaders, they are also members of the community. They have a stake in their field of expertise or the field that they are interested in. They don't need to be experts, they need to be involved in that field. And I think trust is built with the audiences when we engage with creators who understand their field and who engage authentically with the topic and with their audiences. And trust is built with the influencer when we give them agency, because we have to trust that they know the people that they are, that is their audience the best. So not too much hand-holding and constraints.
Mm. That leaves me, yeah, keep the mic, we have enough. That's the users of the other rooms where we didn't have enough, so thank you. But okay, you spoke about reach, trust, that leads me to the term of accountability. And Caroline, I want to ask you this, since you know both sides very well. What is trust with accountability? Is it still democratic in your point of view?
I think, in fact, this is the core question in this whole debate. And when we talk about democracy, we're talking about the power comes from the people. And I think in general, in the new media, we have three big layers. We have, first of all, the politicians on social media, we have the journalists, and we have the creators. And these three layers don't compete with each other, they're just different layers. For example, the vision of politicians on social media is to convince people about their topics, about their ideas, to vote for them. Journalists actually analyze highly complex political debates, for example, and explain this to their audiences. And I think that for creators, the main task is to make institutions and politics to feel human. And this is something that always lacks in the political bubble, in my opinion. So I don't think that trust without accountability is democratic trust, but I would say that accountability looks different on every layer. When you're, for example, a politician and you're making a huge mistake and you've been elected, so you're in a position of huge power, you maybe have to face legal consequences. As a journalist, you have also some, codex, for example, or you have like the fact checkers behind you. So you also have to face some consequences. And for creators, I think the fact how we're making us accountable is to actually convince people that the things that we're showing there are real. To actually show like, okay, we're feeling emotions, this is what we want to transfer. And I think that's also something not a lot of people talk about, where there's so many democratic influencers, for example, and only like very populist influencers normally out there, because it is very scary to go out there and to talk about politics online, because the price you pay is quite high. I'm making myself accountable with the fact that when I'm now, for example, on this conference, people don't see me anymore for my LinkedIn CV, but they see me for the content I'm doing. So I think that's actually like a quiet step everyone has to take. And because politics can be such a scary place, especially for young women, I think we should support more young women to actually go out there and to make democratic content, because otherwise we're only going to have the very populist right and left-wing influencers there. And in general, I would say we help to strengthen democracy when all of these three layers work together and not against each other, and especially not compete against each other, because the general goal should be to strengthen democracy.
Very well said, thank you. Victor, your thoughts on this as well. How does trust translate into something that is legit when we speak of societal impact?
I don't think the type of trust that creators wield is equivalent to the type of legitimacy institutions hold, because I think legitimacy almost necessarily comes from institutions. It's like a doctor is legitimate because of his certificate. What I think influencers have, or what they sort of impact, is attention. And yeah, so, but going back to something Caroline said, you talk about them as three separate layers, but I wonder how or where politicians who go straight to the electorate fit into that sort of story, because we have a few of them. For example, in the UK, Farage does these TikToks that are well known, where he's like goes to a pub and drinks beer, etc. So I wonder how that sort of fits into your system. Do you think all politicians should do that? What are the risks entailed? Is that a better system? Is it worse? Do you need like intermediaries?
Do you want to hook in?
Yeah, sure. I think that what most politicians don't understand, or I think also a lot of older people, for example, who are working in political communication and are not digital natives, is that when I'm talking about 3 layers, all 3 layers need to communicate differently. When I still worked in the European Parliament, and I sometimes talked to politicians, and they told me, yeah, you know, I would love to actually talk to more people and make my agenda public, but I don't want to dance. You know, I don't want to be the clown on TikTok. And I'm just like, please don't dance. Like, no one's forcing you to dance. Don't make yourself ridiculous. And there was an amazing paper of the Bertelsmann Foundation. I think it was published 2 or 3 months ago. And they actually made a research and found out that most young people between 18 and 24, I think it was, actually don't want to see funny TikToks of their politicians. I don't want to see it, for example. I'm part of the Gen Z. And I think it's more about learning how to communicate, to make yourself seen more human again, and to actually translate your agenda. Because sometimes you have this harsh policy, you know, like thousands of pages of paper, and probably even the people who are working in the committee don't really understand, you know, what they're actually working on. And I think the trick is really to find a way how to bridge the gap between you and your harsh policy to your voters and to the audience. And this is certainly not the way as influencers do it, but actually, like, the biggest step is to probably look at social media and also at influencers to see how they are doing it, and just to get familiar with the digital space there.
Do you want to hook in, like looking at you? Otherwise, I would just go into the next.
Sorry, 1 second. I just have like something to add, that I think what politicians and political actors should be aware, that they are politicians first. Just because they go to social media, they don't necessarily get all the passes that influencers get. They still have the responsibilities of a politician. And if you just look at Mamdani, for example, his social media was extremely professional as a politician, and it just translated all the policies, and it just communicated really well to the key audiences, and that's a huge difference, I think.
So my main experience is with creators, but what I can definitely say, and we have other topics to cover, is more like there's no need to copy what the creators are doing. Is exactly what she said, is like understanding the social atmosphere, understanding how can you adapt your voice to what is happening online. If there's a trend, you can, as a politician, you can hop in like in a very clever way that will show like some perspective that you have, makes sense. But if you force it, people will notice. The audience these days, they know what's going on. They know if it's too much, it's very engineered, they will just not buy it. So it's very important to find your personal voice. So I guess for creators and politicians, it's the same.
I would then go to the next cornerstone of our session, because in the title you saw it's also about the term of power brokers. So maybe also with your background, right? When power brokers move giant audiences. There was a Marvel quote that fits perfectly, even though I normally don't say it. They say, with great reach comes great responsibility, right? Not exactly quoted, but it fits in that sense. At what point does influence become power? No, to you.
I think when it translates to behavioral changes in the audiences, and whether this power is good or not, that's case by case, definitely. But I also don't think creators necessarily see themselves as power brokers. They don't have the same approach to kind of influence as a professional politician or a diplomat or anyone who's been in a field like this. Especially with smaller creators that we worked together, it was very clear that they see themselves as an enthusiastic part of their community with a microphone. And I think this makes the power also and the responsibility also more on the campaign side. Choosing the right creator to translate the message, and trusting the right creator to translate the message well. Because they are just people after all. I think unless there is a professional influencer academy, which you need to qualify it in order to have a social media profile, I think responsibility will always be on the campaign teams.
I think I can add also for my experience that sometimes the change, because you mentioned like when there's shift of like the influence becoming power and responsibility, I think sometimes is where like when creators realize that people are just not there anymore just for the entertainment. They are there, like it's not just about, oh, I like your content, I'm going to interact. It's more when they realize people trust their perspective. So there's like, when they have that sense, that's when they realize they have some responsibility. Let's say you are a creator that, I don't know, you post about travel, you post about like random things, and suddenly because of something that happened in the world, you post something and people start replying to you. That's when you realize, oh, actually, you know, like my perspective might be important to some people. But that's also when, for example, the work that we do is like empowering them to feel more, you know, confident that they have the support. So like we help them with giving like curated sources of news, articles, things that they can like leverage on, because, you know, like there's also like so much information out there and they feel like, oh, like if I'm not giving the right information. But if we help them like analyzing stuff and always giving, of course, freedom to post whatever, it's very important because they'll feel like supported like by the information and the things that we are providing them to create better content that will actually translate into action. And also I would add also that the reach, like the number of followers, it's not, so that not just like it doesn't give the power right away. It needs to be trust, like we mentioned before in that particular creator, and also like topic relevance, topic knowledge. So they need to like show somehow that they actually understand what they are talking about for people to believe they have the power or like the influence. So it's not just about reach and numbers.
I see you nodding already in my peripheral view. Next question to you is like, when this happens, when we have creators who rise in power in democratic systems without being part of it, what should the democratic system actually do? Should we adapt? Should we regulate? What is there that is possibly done?
I think that when we're looking at the current statistics, we can see that around about 80% of all the German population is using social media. This is a huge number of people. And when we're talking about politicians, these are not economic players who got there because they made a huge career and are good at sales or whatever. They are there because they got elected. And when you're being elected, you carry responsibility. And when you see that 80% of the country that you're governing is on social media, I think it is not only an option for you, but a democratic duty to actually go on social media and to communicate where your voters are. And as I already said, it's not about copying influencers, it's not about dancing, it's just about getting familiar with the space, finding out how you can translate your messages there. And what always is so striking, I think, still about politics, and especially German politics, is that this whole social media topic is very not well regarded. From my experience, for example, in the German parliament, I know that when there were especially younger politicians who were quite active on social media, they were super often looked down at, because why aren't they working? Why aren't they in office? Why are they doing TikToks? But these are actually the people that are the closest to the population, because they're actually having this bond between them and the voters. And we need more awareness of the fact that we can reach people there, and that is a democratic duty. And this really, I think, also underlines sometimes this very elitist thinking of German politics, especially in established parties. Because when I had a conversation in the last months where I was just like, yeah, but why should I work, for example, with influencers? And I don't tell you to work with influencers. Maybe it's not a fit for you. Maybe it is, but at least consider it. Because why do you look down at someone because this person is just, having another profession as you, maybe not having a PhD, and is maybe younger than you? Why is this person not allowed to talk? Why don't you want to work with this person? And I think that we need another awareness and another thinking about social media, especially in the German political landscape.
So now, thank you. So now we talk a lot about opportunities, but to do justice to the session, we also want to talk a little bit about risks. And there's one term that is important, that's parasocial. So the unhealthy, toxic relationship to influencers, basically, if I translate this correctly. Victor, jumping to you. So opening our third cornerstone for this session. What does it mean for democratic institution if parasocial dynamics are just raising to the top right next to them and they can't do anything?
I mean, I think I'm a little bit skeptical about the parasocial label. Is that not just another term for charisma, which is like something that's always existed in politics? I mean, it's always been charismatic people who do well in elections and can influence other people. So are we not sort of just like mystifying something a little bit? But I'd like actually the other co-speakers to chip in with their opinion, because that's sort of my take on it. It's like, yeah, that's sort of my take. Doesn't really seem like there's any, broadly speaking, it doesn't seem like there's anything new, except for people have more reach, so people with charisma can sort of influence more people, but that's basically it for me.
Maybe just to play the ball, I see you, but maybe, I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
So, amplify good, so to say. What do you think about the parasocial risks and opportunities for democratic systems based on influencers?
I really agree what Victor said. I think parasocial relationship is a given nature of social media. If you are seeing a person creating content that talking into the camera, and you can comment there, and you can engage, and they can reply, that inadvertently becomes parasocial. And we just have to embrace this. This is not so different from town halls, where like a more charismatic and influential person in the town would stand on a soapbox and would shout things, and people would be like, yes. So I think this is just a reality that we have to work with. And I think it becomes manipulation when we are paying influencers to deliver messages that they don't align with, that they don't believe in, and it's not transparent. So we really focus on matching creators as accurately with a campaign as possible. So a campaign has multiple content verticals, and we try to find the creators who are best aligned with it, because the parasocial relationship is a reality that we have to work with, and it just needs to be transparent, and it needs to be honest in order for it to not be manipulative.
Okay.
Yes, please add.
No, I just wanted to add something very quick to what you say. I think like when we do these campaigns, we need to target the creators not as like, you know, for them to do our objectives, but as like citizens with agency. And sometimes that there's something there that lacks. And also like they need to be treated as like democratic citizens that are participatory, that are going to provide some action, and not just like content machines. Because sometimes we just like, oh, they create content. And it's not like that. It really needs to fit the message, like Matthias was saying. And also one thing that we do that is very important, I think when we're working with creators, is like listening to them. Like because we have this idea of like how this campaign is going to work very well, we want to like to send this message out, but they will know better their audience. So the feedback, the constant feedback, like what is working, what is not working, how that can be fit, like that's something very important. And sometimes when we are like creating strategy and campaigns, we don't think about it. And that's when like we are manipulating things. We are like trying to make people believe a certain thing that we want to put out there, and we are not actually thinking about them as people that, you know. So we need to empower them. What I mean is like we need to empower them and make, and also like it's very important when creators make their audience part of the conversation. You know, always like trying to understand what your audience thinks about the topic, so then you can provide content again about that topic, about like, so keeping things rolling in a way that makes sense and not just like making this strategy, oh, I want to put this message out there. So listening to our, so manipulation would be you just throw content, there are content machines, and like trying to avoid that would be listening to the feedback, listening to what the audience is saying about it, and try to like understand it and work again on your content.
Mm. Caroline, you waited patiently. What are your thoughts on it? As a creator, you might have a different view, or are you agreeing with the other speakers?
I would definitely agree with the fact that not every influencer is a fit for every politician. I would certainly agree on that because every influencer is also just a human being, as every politician is. And it can be sometimes quite hard to really figure out how to make this bridge. For example, in our company, like in the Democratic Spin, we have a network of like democratic content creators, for example, worldwide, who work sometimes also in politics, for example, some UN youth delegates, but also people in general who are doing educational content. Not necessarily about studying, but just like teaching people about something or giving, their perspective about something. And we kind of give these contacts to politicians, to institutions, etc., and say like, okay, these influencers could actually be a fit for you, and then they're getting in contact, so the institutions, with the influencers and see if this is a match or not. And I had some talks, for example, in the European Commission with some people who were super frustrated because they used so much social media budget on influencers and felt like, okay, yeah, there were the posts, but somehow it had like absolutely, there was like absolutely zero results in it. They were just like, they paid money for this post and the person did it, but it had no effect. And I think social media influencer marketing politics, it's difficult. And if you're, for example, new in this field, you should talk with people who are already in it to find out what makes sense. For example, also the amount of reach an influencer has. If you, for example, have a very niche topic, it might not make sense to pay an influencer who has like 1 million followers because it's going to reach a lot of people, but probably no one's going to care because it's super niche. But when you're actually paying an influencer who has only 20,000 followers, but is extremely concrete about this niche and has a very like loyal community about this topic, it's going to have a huge effect. And I think that, again, the main problem is that people still underestimate the power of social media and the complexity of it. And as we see it, for example, in the US right now, it's deciding elections. So I think we should really put just highlight this topic way, way, way more. And the main problem, for example, in the institutions, is especially in the German parliament and in the European parliament, is that there's the politician and there's the team behind it. So sometimes 4 to 5 people, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. And all of these people have so many things to do. And social media is quite often the last priority. So it's like when everything's done, we have like this trainee for 500 euros and he's going to cut, he's going to film, he's going to post, he's going to prompt. And he's also going to do like all the journalistic things too. And it's a matter of priority. If we actually start to highlight how important this topic is, I think we could actually have some huge improvements there. But it's absolutely not something against the politician or their teams. It's just that they probably sometimes need help because there are I wouldn't say there's like no concrete study for it or nothing that really prepares you for this.
Thank you so much. We have to jump a little bit in time. That's why I'm going to connect something, and I hope I can at least allow 1 or 2 questions. I would ask all of you maybe for a little perspective into the future. Maybe, Victor, we start with you, and then we go around. What is your perspective? What role will creators have maybe in 5 or 10 years?
I think it's relatively difficult to look so far, but I think it will depend place to place, but I think in Europe they'll play probably like a relatively stable role and sort of along the lines of what my co-speakers are talking about, be sort of like a specific layer that helps politics reach certain people. I don't see them playing like a hugely dramatic role here. That's what I'd say.
Caro, same question to you. Would you agree?
In my utopia, in 10 years, we're going to have, again, as I told you, the 3 layers. And influencers are not taking away the seats of journalists. And I think it's also super important, as well as for journalists, without limiting the free speech, to have some regulations for this when you're letting them, for example, into the parliaments or working with politicians. But, not to take away the seat, but maybe to add 2 or 3 more seats in the row of journalists to actually have this as a valid medium in addition to high political journalism.
The 2 of you? What role will creators have in 10 years? What do you think? Or 5?
Yeah.
Trim it down.
So I'm a bit also pessimistic, but I think these systems, these enable democratic participation in immense ways we never perceived before. But these are tools, these are infrastructures that can be used for mass manipulation and can be used with inauthenticity. And now also seeing how many artificial influencers are being created and how difficult it is now to tell the difference between a real and authentic person and a made-up persona. I think in 5-10 years we'll have definitely legislation being prepared and being made just to kind of try to control this market.
Okay, I'll try to be more optimistic. I don't know, I feel like the creators are already part of this. Maybe not super but maybe not everyone is noticing. So I think then in, let's say 5-10 years, they will be even more active voices. But because if we think about it, there's already I agree that the journalist will be always a journalist. This is a different thing. But for example, let's say I think sometimes the creators can reach an audience that journalists cannot reach because they talk in a very simple way. Sometimes they explain very complex policies in ways that people can understand. So I think we could leverage on that. I hope that in 5-10 years we leverage more on that and not seeing them competing with a journalist, but actually being the next step to get to people. And I would also hope that in 5-10 years we don't depend as much in algorithm. So because right now we need to understand, how is the TikTok algorithm? How is the Instagram algorithm? I hope we have systems, build structures for the creators to be more empowered, and we can highlight and amplify their voices in a better way that is not just dependent on an algorithm that sometimes we don't understand how it works or it changes the next week. So I hope that there's better platforms for them to show their work.
Thank you. That sounds optimistic indeed. Okay, great. My apologies. We are running out of time, and my duty is also to be very strict on it. Otherwise, the team that helped us in the beginning will fry me alive. But you can blame it on me. The wonderful speakers have nothing to do with this. They are here on stage once we finish. That's always a great possibility to attack them. Several of them, I have learned, are on other platforms than LinkedIn, but all of them on LinkedIn, so connect, reach out to them. And maybe the 4 of you can give a hand sign who's here tomorrow too? Yes, that looks good. At least majority, sorry, but then, okay. LinkedIn it is. Thank you so much. I hereby close this panel. Thank you for your time and insights. Glad to have you here.